Hello everyone, this is Laura from Crafty Not Shifty. Welcome to my 10 cards 1 kit video. I'm starting off in super fast forward just to show you how I put together the first of the decoupage pieces. I use a couple of these decoupage pieces in my cards today, and I just wanted to show you how I layer them together using foam squares. They're super easy to pop out of the sheets, and the foam squares that are included in the kit work great for this. Don't worry, I'm not going to show you this for every single card where I use these pieces, but I figured for the first one I may as well include some of the footage, albeit sped up, just so you can see how I put those together and how I trim down those foam square pieces if they're too big in any places. So you'd notice on the very first piece, I kind of used my scissors to trim away some of the edges. That's just kind of the joining sections where it's joined to the card. You can kind of trim those away if they're going to bother you at all. For the most part, I left them, but for that first one, I just wanted to show you what I was doing. Okay, so I've moved into creating the card now. I have my card base, and a layering panel. All of the cards that I'm making today are 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and that giant L-shaped piece of plastic that I have there is a layering guide. This is something that I'm trying out with my cards. It's supposed to help with getting perfect layers on your card base, so you have a really nice even amount of space when you layer down your cards, which is something that I struggle with. I end up putting down my mats kind of wonky quite often, so I'm testing it out. I'll let you know how it goes. It's got a bit of a learning curve with it, I think, and yeah, I'm enjoying it, and I think it definitely helps. Okay, so I added kind of a sunburst of peel-offs, then I stuck down the decoupage piece, and then I die cut a fairy using some of the specialty card, and I layered that up with foam tape and added that, and then finished off with just a sentiment which was taken from one of the other decoupage pieces, and I'm just using some double-sided sticky tape to stick that flat to the card. And that is, oh, we're going to decorate the inside. I don't always do this, and if I do, I don't always show it in a 10 cards 1 kit video, just because of time, because we're trying to get through all 10 cards, but I added a little bit of decoration. So for card 2, I'm going to be doing some heat embossing. I've gone ahead and prepped this cardstock with some anti-static powder tool, and that just helps to kind of take away any of the static and also any of the oils that maybe sat on the cardstock from my fingers, and just allows that embossing powder to sit exactly where I want it. So I went ahead and heat set that, and now I'm adding some of my Brusho watercolor powders. We had some Brusho included in a kit, gosh, a few months back now, and I really enjoy working with it, and I've just added some color down very haphazardly and left that to dry. And then here I have some of the pigment powder. I could have added this at the same time as I did my original painting. Honestly, I don't really know why I didn't. I had it out on my desk, so it wasn't necessarily an afterthought. I think everything just got so wet when I applied the first layer of watercolor. I kind of didn't want to add anything else to it. So I went back and added this on its own, and it definitely lent itself to having kind of a thicker layer of this shine. So it looks really nice in the end. I just used some water to help me add that to this piece, and I kind of worked it all over this card panel. And I really love the look of this watercolor against the embossing, and I actually used some watercolor cardstock from my stash for this piece because I knew I was going to be adding so much water. I didn't want the cardstock that I was using to warp in any way. So once that had dried, I've got some tape here, and I'm using my thanks sentiment. And I've just masked that off to make sure I don't get any of my Versamark in the places that I don't want it. And I'm just pressing that directly through the stencil. So I'm kind of using it like you would use a stamp, but obviously it's a stencil. So it just gives you an extra look with your stenciling supplies. So I went ahead and got my thanks heat embossed, and then I added a lot underneath just with some black ink. Then again, I used my giant L-shaped layering guide just to try and layer that up, and I trimmed down that painted panel and stuck it to a blue card base. Okay, on to card number 3. So here I have a blue card base and then some pearlized patterned paper that I've cut down to cover the front of it, and I've just gone ahead and stuck that down, and then I'm grabbing some of these stickers. This sticker in particular I think is beautiful with that kind of butterfly wreath. I think it's just lovely, and as soon as I saw it I knew I wanted to use this on a card. So here I've got another piece of pattern paper that I trimmed down just to kind of showcase a row of those butterflies, and of course I'm going to outline it all in peel-offs. I find myself some months using kind of tons and tons of my peel-offs. Some months I don't use quite so many. I always use some of them. I think they're a really great item and they've definitely been really popular, and they just really add something extra when you've got those two pieces of paper kind of meeting each other. It adds that faux kind of matting without so much effort of measuring and cutting, and I just think it's a really nice way to kind of add a bit more personalization to your cards. So once I was happy with that, I stuck down another sticker inside of my butterfly wreath, and I went with one from a different sheet of the stickers rather than the one that was kind of naturally layered inside it. You could definitely use that one as well, that would work perfectly. And then I added the For You stamp. I decided I wanted a little something extra on the background, so I went ahead and added my Nuvo drops, kind of at all of the, I'm going to call them, I guess, intersections of the design and the background patterned paper. And the pearlescent sheen on this is so beautiful. Okay, next card. So again, I've pre-cut some of my patterned papers, and I'm going to go ahead and create this is kind of a card design that I really enjoy making. This is just where you trim down a whole bunch of your paper and just start looking at it, seeing what layers up nicely, kind of figuring out where you want to add some extra little details. So like this ribbon here, whenever I use ribbon, and I use a lot of it this month, I was really kind of digging the ribbon and the peel-offs. And for the ribbon, I like to run my ATG along the back of it, so I kind of get like a self-adhesive ribbon. That works best for me rather than using any kind of wet glue. So once I've got that stuck down, I'll just fold those edges behind my card base, making sure I get a nice good stick. I was struggling with it on that left-hand side. And then again, I'm going to reach for my peel-offs and layer those down. So with very little bulk on this card, I've got kind of the background patterned paper piece, then we've got that layered patterned paper, then the peel-offs, and then the ribbon. So it gives you a really kind of visually dimensional and interesting kind of vibe going on, but there's not a whole lot of bulk here. Oh, and I decided to add another layer, so I'm adding the peel-offs just in between that background piece and that first layer. And it really does help to kind of add that interest and just take your cards up a level. And if you have any wonky kind of cutting, it can hide a mass of sins. So here I have this other piece. This is cut to be slightly thicker, and I'm going to layer that directly on top. Again, I've not used any kind of foam tape here. There's so much like visual dimension, I'm calling it, going on this card that I felt that it didn't actually need a whole bunch of foam tape behind all the different layers because it's just got so much interest anyway. So again, I'm adding those peel-offs. I warned you, I used a whole bunch of them in this card, but they really are great. So here I have an oval that I've cut from some more of that specialty cardstock, and I'm going to use this as a base for maybe my favourite element in this whole kit, and that is the little pre-made shaker bottles. They are super cute. To finish this card off, I picked a selection of the buttons and also the little wand charm, super cute. I still have a couple of these left. This was the only one that I used on the cards today, and I don't think I can use them. It's one of those things that they're so very cute, I just want to hoard them and have them in my stash. So I went ahead and stuck everything down using multi-medium, and then I added just one bit of foam tape. So that was some foam squares behind my sentiment piece, and then I'm going to grab a cream card base and stick this down. If I didn't already mention, all of my cards are 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I made them just by cutting down the cardstock included into the kit. I cut it in half and folded it in half, and that creates my card bases. Okay, on to the next card. So again, I've grabbed my mini Misty to help me with my stamping. And I've just stamped with some more Versamark. Again, I did prep this piece of cardstock using anti-static powder tool. And then I have this gorgeous pink embossing powder. It is so very pretty, and it's got a lovely amount of sparkle to it as well. And I'm just going to go ahead and heat set that using my heat tool. And I love watching embossing powder kind of change colour. I think embossing powder was one of those techniques that I saw kind of really early on in card making, and it definitely gave me that like wow factor. Okay, so I've moved on, and again I'm using my stencil a little more traditionally this time. I have a tiny ink blending brush, and I'm adding some pink ink. That is the Hollyhock colour from Simon Says Stamp, and then I'm switching to a yellow colour and just kind of blending that over the top. One thing that I did realise as I was doing this is that you need to be careful with that kind of section at the top of the L, because it's only attached in one place. If you're not careful, it will kind of move and shift on you, but it's really easy to just go ahead and hold it in place like I'm doing here with my finger, and then you can get the ink really get it in there without any fear of it moving around. So I went back in and layered in a little bit more of the pink just to darken it up, and I really like how this kind of two-toned, I want to say ombre, but I feel like that's not the right word, but I really like how that turned out. Then I grabbed a zig marker and I'm just colouring in some of these flowers just to kind of help them pop. I think with the tiny lines and the detail on this particular stamp, you can kind of lose some of the visual imagery without a little bit of colouring, but I didn't colour the whole thing, so it didn't take too long at all, which is perfect for me. And I really like how this card turned out. I finished it off with the stamp Sending, and then added some foam behind my decorated panel and stuck it to a white card base. And then of course I grabbed some more of those Nuvo drops and just added a whole bunch of drops onto the background in varying sizes, just to add a little something something. One final thing was needed for this, and it was one of these tiny iridescent fairies. Again, I've used some multi-medium in the matte finish to stick her down, because it's a really strong glue and it does of course dry clear, or at least matte. So here I have a grey card base, and I'm working my way through the dandelion stamps, and I started off with the largest and I'm working my way through to the smallest, just creating a tone-on-tone background. And you can see I'm just kind of twisting and turning the stamps, filling in any of those spaces as I go. I find this type of background really kind of therapeutic to create, and as long as you make sure to get your larger images down first and to make sure that some of the images hang over the edge, you can get a really nice look to this without too much effort at all. Again, I grabbed one of my decoupage pieces, created it exactly the same as I did with the first one. As I mentioned, I kind of trimmed out the video clips, otherwise there would have been a whole lot of video of me doing the same thing over and over again. And then here I have some ribbon. Again, just added some ATG onto the back of this to make it kind of a self-adhesive ribbon, and this is the best ribbon. It's such a beautiful glittery ribbon. It's again something that I don't want to use for fear of wanting to hoard it, but I felt like it looked great on this card. I grabbed one of the sticker sentiments and added some foam squares onto the back, and that completes this card. Okay, so again, I'm going to add a whole bunch of ribbon to this piece. I was really enjoying the patterns of the ribbons, and I decided to create kind of a ribbon and pattern paper combo background piece. And I'm actually using the grid pattern on this piece to get even layering with these ribbon pieces to make sure that they're spaced an even amount apart across my card base. So I'm just counting the number of squares and then placing that down and trimming off the excess. And I decided to cover the whole panel. Then I used another oval die from my stash to cut out one of the patterned papers. This is a beautiful one with the little kind of fairies dancing across the background, and I stuck that down right in the center. And then I grabbed a piece of cardstock and I've trimmed that down, and I'm going to stick that down across the bottom section here of this oval, and then I'll trim off the excess after I have done, of course, the crucial step of adding the peel offs along those edges. So here I'm taking a couple more of the sticker pieces just to fill in the pattern. I've added these 3 fairies and a couple flowers, and then I'll go ahead and grab a butterfly and add that in the top right hand corner. And again, I just love how this card turns out. I think the fairies are so delicate and so sweet, and I'm really pleased with all of the cards that I made today. So I grabbed a little sticker sentiment here, and then you can see that I have layered up the little bottle piece here with another oval. I was really digging the ovals and I just cut off the bottom so I could almost nestle that in and make it look like it disappears behind the sentiment strip. I'm going to go ahead and add some adhesive onto a white card base. Make sure I have it the right way round, because we've all been there when you create a card panel and you go and stick it down and you realize it's upside down and your card opens the wrong way, and it's extremely frustrating, even though you can just cut it off and add it to a new card base. But nonetheless, let's try and avoid that. So that is this card finished. Okay, for this next card, I decided to use the glitters. I'm going to be finding that glitter for at least a month all over the floor, all over my face, and all over my dog, but it's so cute. So I grabbed some double-sided adhesive sheets and I covered a piece of cardstock with the double-sided adhesive, peeled off the backing, and then I'm just working my way through the colours and kind of making a glitter cardstock. Honestly, I could have just grabbed some glitter cardstock from Love From Lizi, because they have beautiful non-shed glitter cardstock and you don't have any of the stress of there being loose glitter everywhere. But these little bottles of glitter were so adorable, I couldn't help myself. So I'm just grabbing a bone folder here and kind of really burnishing that glitter in the hopes that it stays in place a little bit better. And then I'm going to grab some of the dies and die cut from this. So fair enough, if I'd used the non-shed glitter, I wouldn't have been able to get these die cuts that have the different colours running through them. So maybe it's worth it to have a house filled with glitter. Maybe that's your aesthetic, maybe that's what you love. But yeah, I think Darren finds it a little frustrating sometimes when he finds glitter on himself, when he hasn't even been in the craft room, or when he finds glitter on the dog. Anyway, that's my glitter rant over. So I've added some of the pearlized pattern paper to a card base. Again, this is such a beautiful piece. And then my camera died. So what I've done in the bits that you have missed is I've stuck down another piece of patterned paper and of course outlined with peel offs. I also stuck some of the pearlized patterned paper. It's that same piece that's in the background, but I used the back side of it so it was plain white. I stuck that behind all of my die cuts and just trimmed away the excess. So rather than having kind of an open gap through the fairy wings and an open gap through the with love, instead it has this white pearlized finish to it. Then I grabbed some of the green specialty cardstock, and again, just testing out my layering tool to create those layers. I do think it's helping me, but I need a little bit more time to get used to it before I'm kind of confident as to whether or not I'd recommend it, I think is where I'm at. So maybe not everybody struggles with getting their layers on straight like I do. So I'm adding each of these pieces using some I'm using my ATG and a combination of my multi-medium for any of the areas that are too small to get my tape in. And then I'm just holding those in place with my acrylic blocks while they dry. So I wasn't sure about this design and kind of what I wanted to put in that bottom right hand corner. I really love all of these little glittery pieces, but I wasn't sure if they work together, having kind of all of them thrown at the card. So I grabbed some buttons and I felt like that filled in the empty space a little bit better and just worked a little better with the design. So that is my super glittery and pearlized piece finished. So for this card, I've grabbed so many of the ribbons and I'm adding double-sided sticky tape all over them. And I'm again just going to create a pattern in the background using some ribbon. I decided to start in the center and then kind of work out from there, and you'll see I just keep bringing in one of those decoupage pieces just to see how it looks on top of the ribbon pieces and whether or not I want to add more. And then I was counting. I guess I was trying to figure out how many rows of each design I had and which ones I wanted to add. So I went with one more strip at the top. I apparently got some ribbon stuck to my ATG gun. I don't know if you noticed that just then. And then I'm going to go ahead and add this decoupage piece on top of all of my ribbon. Then I wanted to add a little bit more dimension to this piece, and I still haven't noticed that ribbon, and I'm applying double-sided tape on the back of this white craft foam. That's just inexpensive craft foam, and I've cut it down to be card sized. I generally try and keep some of that on hand with my card bases and my card panels because I do prefer to use that for kind of all over dimension. So I'll stick that down to a cream card base, and that is this card finished. Okay, so this is the final card, I believe, and it is a super simple design, but it's so beautiful. I've stamped everything down using Versamark, and I went ahead and stamped it twice. You don't necessarily need to, but it's an advantage of having the MISTI. You can make sure you get really kind of juicy stamping. And then I'm going to go ahead and cover everything with some white embossing powder. And this is going to give a really beautiful finish once it's all heat set. I think the white on the dark cardstock really pops and it looks just lovely, and it adds some really nice interesting detail with such a kind of fine line detailed stamp like this one. And although I had prepared the base with anti-static powder tool, because there are kind of little specks and spots throughout the design, if you do have any stray powder, you can totally play it off as part of the design. So I guess that's really great. So then I grabbed some more of that dark cardstock and I've layered together my happy birthday wishes, and I went ahead and heat set that and then trimmed everything down. There we go, I noticed the tape. I knew I noticed it eventually. So I'm adding double-sided sticky tape onto the back of this cut down panel. I did cut down what would have been a card base for these two pieces, so I pulled in one card base from my stash and I decided to go with white, so there would be a little white border behind this white heat embossed stamping, and I think it looks so lovely against this dark blue cardstock. And you'll see in just a moment I added just a little something extra to really make it pop. Totally optional, but I think it looks really great. So I'm peeling off the backing of those foam squares. Those are the ones that came in the kit. I decided to use some of them for some sentiment because despite making so many of the decoupage pieces, I still had some left over, which is really great. And then here is that extra little bit of detail. So I've just grabbed a Prismacolor white pencil and I'm just adding a little highlight line around the right hand side of some of these pieces just to add some more dimension and to make it really pop off that background. Totally optional, but I think it really does add quite a bit to this piece and really helps it pop off the background. Once I've finished with the highlighting, that is that card finished, and I'll just do a quick recap of all of the cards. So this has been the 10 cards 1 kit video for the Love From Lizi March card kit. The months are flying by and it feels like we are only moments away from the April card kit being released, or at least the sneak peek starting over on Instagram, which starts on the 12th. The kit will be released on the 19th and they do tend to sell out really quickly. So if you're interested in getting your hands on one of these card kits, if you didn't get the March one and you want to keep your eyes out for the April kit, then I definitely recommend setting a reminder in your diary for the 19th, or you can head over to the store and sign up for the subscription service if that's something that you're interested in. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you for sticking with me until the end. If you could let me know in the comments which one of these is your favorite. I do love hearing from you guys. It certainly brightens my day. If you're not already a subscriber, then you can go ahead and tap on the logo on screen right now to subscribe to this channel, and you can find more from me on the Crafty Nut Shifty channel. I try to upload every Tuesday and Thursday, and I hope to see you over there for my next video. That's all from me today. I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.